the beginning of time, we have been visited by beings we have referred to as angels, fairies, spirits, demons. We have seen strange lights and crafts in our skies. Creature sightings, such as Bigfoot, the Mothman, the Jersey Devil, and others, continue to be reported year after year. What is it we're seeing out there? Is this phenomenon all connected? More importantly, is it a threat? We all need a safe space in which to share our experiences, discuss the implications of the phenomena, and come together as a community of Forteans. That place is the bunker. Come and join us.
So nice to hear from you.
Same here. Yeah, thanks for reaching out to me. It was it just recently came to my attention that having a podcast about hauntings and different weird phenomena and stuff that I hadn't actually touched on anything cryptid yet, and so I just started looking around at different websites and stuff, and I came upon the New Jersey BFRO chapter, and I saw the website and describing the expeditions that you guys host out into the pines and stuff like that, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. I didn't realize that this was actually happening right under my nose.
Yeah, it's been going on for a little bit, yeah. But it's something I enjoy doing. I've been the organizer and the investigator here in New Jersey since, I guess, originally 2009, but doing the organizing for the expedition since 2014. So we've had a number of successful expeditions, both here in the Pine Barrens and up north in northern New Jersey.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I've actually spent a lot of time up in northwest Jersey, just hiking up and down the Appalachian Trail, and up in that area, and I did encounter a bear at one point, but nothing paranormal ever happened to me up there.
Appalachian Trail definitely has its number of encounters, just because obviously there's people on the trail, and that's where we're typically going to experience these types of things. But we've done a number of nighttime operations up on the AT and have had some success. Interesting. Well, that's cool. A lot of funny occurrences also, There's always something funny that happens on these things, which it's always a blast, because it's something you can laugh about afterwards,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you can't have fun with it, then you're doing it wrong.
Well, it's definitely something I enjoy doing, and I love sharing, my knowledge of this type of research with other people. So I'm glad you approached us. My research partner, Art Mack, is also the co-founder myself of the NASBRO, North American Sasquatch Bigfoot Researchers Organization. So we have actually that website as well, nasbro.net, and North American Sasquatch Bigfoot Researchers Organization on the Facebook, of course.
Okay, cool. So, so we're speaking with Eric Spinner, and I came across his website while looking for some cryptid activity in the area of New Jersey. So let's give the listeners kind of like an origin story of you, and just sort of where you came from, how you came to be connected with this phenomenon, like what did anything happen to you back in the day that sort of what happened to you that got you into this phenomenon?
Okay, well, thanks for having me on tonight, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here. I actually, as a small child, went and saw a movie, Sasquatch, The Legend of Bigfoot, with my dad. And that's really what spurred my interest in this. And I was terrified after watching it, and I couldn't sleep for about a month thinking this hairy arm was going to come through my window. And then I find out later there's no Sasquatch on Long Island. But then we moved down to southern New Jersey when I was a teenager, and of course we spent a lot of time out on the pole lines, as we call them down here, partying and having keg parties and things, and never gave Sasquatch a second thought. Bigfoot never entered my mind. Okay. Back around 2006, though, I got online and I came across the BFRO website, and I was just amazed by all the sighting reports that actually were submitted to this area. And that's really what piqued my interest. And at the time, they had a discussion board, what they called the Blue Book then. And that actually had the ability to speak with other researchers and other investigators. And, I started talking to people in different parts of the country and in British Columbia, Ontario, Canada. And I found that there was some collaboration between what I was experiencing here in the Pine Barrens with what they were describing in their areas. And so that really did it for me. And I got out and I was doing a lot of boots on the ground research and just taking notes of different, things that I was here on the East Coast. And then back in 2008, I was able to attend my first expedition with the BFRO out in Northwest PA. And I don't know if you recall the Jacobs photos, but that was a couple of game cam photos that these hunters had taken of a juvenile Sasquatch in Pennsylvania. And so we had our expedition in that area, and that's when I actually had my first experience with some individual coming to my tent in the early morning hours.
Really?
Yeah, I was with another guy, Todd Prescott from Ontario, Canada, and he and I we actually stayed an extra night after everybody had left in a campsite which had a thermal sighting 2 nights earlier. And so we were kind of hoping for some kind of activity. We hiked, late into the night on these forest roads, and unfortunately, nothing came from that. But we got back to our campsite, and he says, "Get in the tent and let's hope for the best." And then as I'm getting in the tent, he radios me on the walkie-talkie and says, "Hey, I just heard a scream. Come back out." So we walk back down the road. We therm the area. Don't see anything. It's okay. Let's go back to tents and say a prayer and hope for the best. And like 10 minutes after I got in my tent, I could not only hear, but I could feel footsteps approaching me. And it came around to the front where my head was. I was laying on my back, and all of a sudden, the moon was mostly down at this point, but I could still see a silhouette. And this thing crouched down, took a deep breath, and then pressed in on the tent fabric with its hand. And I could see this over my head, and my heart is pounding in my chest. And I was just like, God, I'm ready to lose it, because this is my first time. I'm from New York. I haven't even really camped out much, And so wow. I click my radio, my walkie-talkie 3 times, hoping, Todd might hear that. And I don't get a response. I didn't want to talk into it and scare whatever it was, scare the poor thing. And then a moment later, I hear what sounded like a truck approaching. We were on a forestry road, which was also on gas lines. They do a lot of, gas drilling in Pennsylvania. Okay. And so this thing was coming up the road, this vehicle, and just at where our campsite was a 90-degree turn. And I could hear the creature outside just take off and start running through the campsite over the fire ring and then into the brush outside again. And I could hear how it was running on 2 legs, not like a 4-legged, quadrupedal animal would. And then I clicked the radio again 3 times, and I didn't get any answer back. And then the truck rounded the corner, and a moment or two later, I thought what I heard was like equipment starting up in the background. And that's when Todd came over the radio and said, "You all right over there?" I said, "Were you walking around outside my tent?" He says, "No, I wasn't walking around outside your tent." Man. And that's shortly after that, I think I passed out from the adrenaline rush. But Todd had told me the next morning that something came back into camp about 10 minutes later, and he had a thermal camera hooked up to a monopod. But he couldn't get it out. He unzipped his tent flap, but he couldn't get it out of the dome of the tent high enough in order to see the individual coming back into the center of camp. So right. Both of us heard the creature, but neither one of us really got any visual on it. And so when I woke up, though, at 10 a.m. the next morning, his tent was all folded, ready to go. He said, "Go get your game cameras. I'll fold your tent up." And he was ready to go.
I imagine. And you were describing the feeling and also hearing the footsteps.
Correct.
So I mean, this is super heavy, but a 2-footed pattern of footsteps, correct? I mean, because I've had bears outside of my tent before, and there's not. I mean, they're pretty damn silent actually for as big as they are.
Right. Oh yeah, no, I could actually feel, like I was laying on my back, I could feel the ground with each step, and then it came around to my head, and like I said, I could actually like hear it crouch down and then take this deep inhale, and that was my first encounter with any type of individual out in the forest. Before that, I had experienced wood knocks and whoops and some vocalizations, as we call them. And I had recorded some also in the Pine Barrens of some wood knocks when I was out on a solo hike early on. But yeah, that was my first kind of like, I don't want to say in my face because it was really behind my head kind of thing. So that's really, at that point, that really got me excited. And he and I actually met back at the same location 3 weeks later. And just as I got out of my vehicle, he had just shown up, and I got out of my vehicle, and you could hear a tree get pushed over. And I looked over at him. I said, "Here."
Wow.
So it's an active area, but I think at this point it's pretty squatched out because a lot of people have gone there to do research.
Right. Did you guys happen to, like the next morning when you guys woke up, did you happen to like look around for like any, like footprints or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely checked for tracks. My tent was facing the game trail to the left of the campsite, and his was facing the swamp to the right. And like I mentioned, the individual came from like the road over berm and came around my tent, and it was all grassy around my tent. So there was no impressions in the grass that we could see. I went and got my game camera, and like I said, when I got back, I didn't see any impressions or anything. And he was ready to go at that point. But yeah, no, I've definitely found impressions on some of our expeditions, and we have cast some really cool track impressions. So we have some track casts from the Pine Barrens, also from British Columbia. The following year was when I got to go out to the West Coast and attend a Sunshine Coast expedition in British Columbia, and we had activity every day there. That was incredible.
Really?
From wood knocks to howls. I had a rock thrown at me. We had this thrown at us. It was really an unbelievable experience. And on the last day, again, I stayed an extra day. Everyone else had left. The organizer was up at base camp, and I was down in a ravine because it was so dry and hot that summer. The waterfall was dry, and I was just kind of meditating and sitting on a down tree down in the creek bed. And I look up and I see an individual up on the waterfall about 70 yards away, and it was auburn colored hair. And I could just see the head and the shoulders. And I was like, wow, that wasn't there a minute ago. So I had a camera in my left hand, so I raised it up and I zoomed in and I took a picture. And then I remembered somebody saying, oh, if you turn around and take pictures over your shoulder, you might get them, walking away. So of course, all I got as a result were pictures of bushes. And when I turned back around, it was gone. And now I can kick myself, of course, for not looking at it closer and longer. But I did take a second, after shot with the camera also. And you can clearly see it, like, even though the picture I took of the individual was blurry, as they most are, okay, you could see that there was something in the first picture and nothing in the second. So I had, taken the camera up to the hill, to the base camp, and I told Rob, the organizer, that I thought I saw a Bigfoot. And we put my card in his laptop, and we looked at the comparison photos, and he said, yeah, I think you saw a Bigfoot.
Wow, that's crazy. So is there any sort of similarities or disparities in what you've seen in like the British Columbia area as opposed to like the Pine Barrens area?
There are similarities, and that's why I mentioned earlier about the, collaborating evidence that we were experiencing. And some people like to say data. I just call it evidence, but there are tree manipulations, as we call them, where there'll be arches and X's and teepee type formations, things of that nature. We do have on both sides of the coast. I did experience that as well. Whoops and certain vocalizations will sound similar. Wood knocks, of course, were a lot louder out in BC. I will say that. I heard a wood knock on one of the first nights at the expedition that sounded like artillery fire. And I was just sitting there, and I went, "Oh my God!" And then Rob quickly picked up the baseball bat he had sitting next to him, and he ran and knocked it up against a tree. And I was thinking, "Don't do that, wait." Sure enough, after that, we had nothing. And I mean, it was like, that was the way it was. Sometimes they'd want to mess around with us, but this base camp was set up in a way that there was like elevations all around us, where I later discovered by taking a hike over there that there were like locations along this trail that they could like hide behind root balls of trees that had fallen over and observe us from above, which I found really interesting,
Wow.
So they are definitely the Seek world champions.
Wow. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I've heard that, reports of that over and over again. And also something you touched on earlier, which is trying to get a picture of this creature and having equipment malfunctions. Have you personally had anything strange like that as far as equipment malfunctions go, or anyone that you've been with? Has that been something that happens?
Indeed, it is, and we have a name for it. Well, sometimes we call it a vortex, but it is definitely the Sasquatch curse when it comes to certain equipment failing. We've had microphone, like, the digital recorders just die on us with new batteries in them. We've had the thermal imager die on us. I mean, it's just amazing some of the things that happen. And I don't know if I attribute it to necessarily paranormal type activity or not, but it's like the Sasquatch curse, And yes, we have experienced that when we were out on night ops. And it's kind of strange. Just like some of these ghost hunter, episodes you see on TV, where they'll have equipment fail on them, and the brand new battery I just put in the camera is dead, kind of thing.
Yeah, I've investigated for years myself, more paranormal realm, not not the cryptid realm, but I have, and countless others have had that same experience happen over and over again. And something else that we have had happen to us, I'm curious if this has happened to you or anyone that you've worked with out in the field, is that you will take a picture of, say, a hallway, a room, or something in a home, and you will, in the flash of the camera, you'll see something with your eyes and get all excited, like, "Oh, what the heck? There was someone just standing there. I just caught it." But then when you look at the picture, there's nothing there. So I'm curious, has anything like that ever happened to you guys out there?
A couple of times I have, let's say, taken, I don't know if it'd be a picture necessarily, or tried to look at something using like thermal imager or night vision goggles or something, thinking that I see something, and then when you take it off, it's not there. That's one thing I can say I definitely have experienced. I have a couple of times just when I'm out on the hike with my girlfriend tonight or whatever, and we've taken a picture, what I thought was like a dark, like, silhouette, turns out to be nothing. But I don't often use flash photography when I'm out in the woods at night. Yeah. And I don't rely necessarily on night vision or the thermal imager, because really that's just kind of like backup,
Interesting. So one thing that I was, we were talking about like a minute ago, I was pretty impressed with was, came across your website where you were describing the expeditions that you host out into, the pines and so forth. I was pretty impressed at how serious you guys take this, and how you sort of like, it's almost like written right in the description, that, you really only want people coming with you that are going to take this seriously, and that you're going to have to, it's going to be camping out. It's going to be several days. You're going to have to pack your own food, and you're going to be responsible for your own water and supplies and that sort of thing.
And gear.
And your gear and everything. Yeah. And so
it's legit. Yeah, no, we've been doing this now, like I said, since 2014, at least in New Jersey, when I had the first inaugural private expedition. We actually had that one coincide with the filming of the northern New Jersey episode of Finding Bigfoot. And so that one was just limited to certain individuals and BFRO members. But we did have Matt Moneymaker, the founder of the BFRO, join us on Saturday for our final night out. And we recorded some really awesome screams that night in northern New Jersey. And I'll tell you what, it matches what I've also recorded down here in the Pine Barrens. So that's really awesome for me to have that, again, that collaborating evidence. But yeah, the expeditions are serious, and we are the world's largest scientific research organization. So as part of my obligations as organized, have people request either inquiring about the expedition, and then they will contact our secretary, and I'm the one then responsible for interviewing them to make sure that they're not coming along to either hoax us or mess around with us. And I'm pretty good at telling if somebody's serious or not. I know which questions they ask, and never had a problem with any of that. We've always had a great bunch of people coming on these things, and we are out there in the woods for 3 nights, 4 days. And it's really cool, though, I have to say, because we get to spend time with like-minded individuals who are there for the same purpose. I always have, other BFRO investigators helping out as well. We definitely keep it serious, but we have a good time as well. It's like one big happy family at the end.
Oh, that's cool. So where do you guys typically, host your expeditions? Does it really depend on the time of year, the season, or how does that work?
The timing of the year, definitely. Generally fall or spring are the best times to do these activities. Wintertime and hot summer months are generally lowered activities. So I have one actually scheduled in June, the BFRO that I'm organizing, and we have a number of people who have signed up and a number of repeaters coming on it. But I try to limit the number of people on my expedition because I don't want a bunch of people traipsing around through the woods and, disrupting things. I mean, I find the better activity is generally found with small numbers. And so we are going to be doing one in the Pine Barrens this June. And the sign-up information is at bfro.net. But again, I'm getting close to having the maximum number of people I think I want on this. But that's how we go about, organizing them, and people can inquire online, and we give them more information, and then I do the interview, and if they're accepted into the expedition, they then have to sign the non-disclosure agreement and pay the registration fee if they're new. If they're a repeater, it's a lower fee, and it works out really well.
Oh, that's cool. I imagine, because how serious you guys take this, I imagine there's probably some kind of protocol, that, and like you said, you want to keep it to a small group. It's just easier to keep, handle and everything. I've hosted investigations myself. I totally get that part.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, so there's got to be some kind of protocol, right, for like, do's and don'ts, once you set up camp and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. In fact, we have a BFRO handbook that I, provide each attendee. So there is definitely a protocol in place that was outlined by, again, Matt Moneymaker, the founder. I'm not rigid where somebody's going to have to, show up at the base camp meeting at 1 p.m. If they're out doing a day scouting, looking for a potential, place to go on a night op, I'm not going to, hold them to it. But we do have like a protocol as far as signing in and signing out, and there's no alcoholic beverages allowed, of course. No firearms, no pets. I mean, those are the specific, protocols, I guess you could say. I like people to have a clear head when they're on these things, because let's say if we're up in North Jersey, there are a higher bear population. We've had a number of black bear come into camp, in Pennsylvania also, British Columbia. I saw a number of bears. So you want to keep a clear head on these things,
Yeah, no doubt. So what is the craziest encounter you've ever had, like on one of your expeditions that you've actually hosted?
That's a good question. I mean, I think, like I said, one of the craziest my own personal experiences has to be that first one with the tent. You know what I mean? Because I was a newbie. I didn't have much camping experience, and having something come up to me in a campground and pressing, like if it was a bear, it would have torn that fabric, with its claws. Yeah. So having a hand pressing in over this thin little piece of fabric, which is, separating me from a potentially 7 or 8 foot tall creature, definitely was a exciting moment. I don't know. There's been so many pretty cool things that have happened, especially out in BC. When I got hit with a rock when I was just sitting in base camp, we had, like I said, sticks tossed in as we were sitting around in a circle, and other people had rocks thrown at them also on that one. there's just a lot of fun things that happen. As I mentioned to you before we got started, we were one night in British Columbia. We're sitting up on this hillside where allegedly this female Sasquatch will come down the hill to go like harvest mollusks out of this area, right? And we're sitting there. We had a group down at the bottom, and we were sitting up on the hillside in another group, maintaining radio contact. And apparently one of our attendees, Mike, from originally Seattle, now he's in Canada, but he had actually gone up to, take advantage of Mother Nature, apparently. And so we're sitting there in the quiet listening, and one of the attendees actually saw a head pop up over the bushes in the silhouette. She could see a head of something, the head and shoulders, and caused quite a stir. But I'm looking around, and I see this silhouette coming down the hill, and it's just like striding and coming at us fast. And I get out of my camp chair, and I go over to Colleen. I said, I don't want to alarm you. There's something coming down the hill, and it's heading straight for us, and it turns out it was Mike, and he had long hair and a beard, and so, things like that are absolutely like something we laugh about afterwards, But it scared me, let me tell you. I thought this thing was coming right, and it was, about the size of what I would experience a female, Bigfoot to be. In British Columbia, also, Rob, the organizer, and this guy Neil from Seattle, and myself went to this place called No Name Lake. And this place has what people say is a alpha male, like 9.5 feet tall, all black hair. And so we get all set up early in the, while it's still daylight, and we have all our bags open and stuff so we don't make any noise. And the mosquitoes were like crazy. I mean, they were just like a fog of mosquitoes. But just as it was starting to get dark, we hear a tree get pushed over. And then 2 wood knocks down again, like artillery shells going off. They're so loud. Then another tree gets pushed over. And I'm like, great, this is awesome, This is why I'm here, Wow. And so we had like call blasting equipment on the roof of Neil's truck. We had recording equipment, night vision, all that good stuff. And then Neil turns on his camera and it goes boop. And after that, we didn't have a peep. That was it. It killed all the activity following. And literally, I mean, I even walked down, and these trees out in BC are so tall. I mean, literally, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face because it was pitch black, right? There was no moon. I walked down this forest road so that we can do some back and forth provocation, like wood knocks and whoops or whatever. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking to myself, I could just get grabbed by this guy and nobody would even know. I mean, I would just be taken out and gone, Still unnerving, I have to say, especially when you're out there by yourself. And
wow, yeah, I can't imagine.
The first night I'm out in BC, actually, Rob and I were there a night early, and he had like this little RV camper, and so and I just met him. This is the first time, to him online. This is our first time meeting. And he's like, okay, you're gonna sleep here, and that's the cot at the end, by the door of the RV, and he's gonna sleep in the bedroom portion. And literally goes, and leave the door open, he says, so the main door, the screen door is closed. Oh, great. Here I am my first night in BC and there's Bigfoots around and I'm going to leave the screen door closed. That was kind of funny. But, and actually the year before, this guy, Charles, when he first showed up a day early, he was having rocks thrown at him and he was so unnerved. I mean, literally he asked to stay in the camper that night, rather than a tent. But just some really great stories from out there, and I can't wait to get back out there again. That's one of my favorite places to do research, and I've done it in a few different areas: New York, Pennsylvania, Missouri, Florida, New Jersey. Of course, I spent most of my time. I would have to say, between Art and myself, we have probably more boots on the ground experience than a lot of people out there doing this. And I don't say that to beat my chest. You know what I mean? We're just out there a lot.
Right.
And we try to keep a lot of our activity posted on our Facebook, page as far as the NASBRO group is concerned. I don't participate too much on Facebook with the BFRO group. Occasionally I'll mention something, but we used to have, like I said, the discussion board, and that was a great way to communicate and post expedition notes and things, but then that particular server is no longer around, so that all went bye-bye. So I missed that, of course, because that was a good way to keep people on top of things and to, let them know how the expeditions went and to hear discussion, before an expedition. So now we just use a private Facebook page for our expeditions in order to keep in contact with the attendees and to ask questions and provide answers.
Gotcha. So based on, what, the experiences that you've had, I'm always intrigued by the wood knocking thing. Like, what do you think that is exactly? Is that some sort of signaling between them, or is that just like a warning sign? It's some kind of communication, I would imagine, correct? I mean, what's your take on that?
Absolutely. I definitely feel that's correct. And I have my own theories, of course. Like, there's been occasions when I've been out there and I've been with, let's say, 3 other people. So there's 4 of us. And when we're out there, I might hear like 4 wood knocks. And it could just be because I don't think they're out there by themselves. There's usually 2 or 3, traveling together. Okay. In my opinion. Right. And so that's kind of like a warning maybe for the other individuals. Like, hey, there's 4 hairless pink primates out here. So that's what I think they call us. But, yeah, I have to say it's definitely a form of communication. And other researchers have experienced it as well, as far as them doing these types of wood knocks. Some people hear what they call rock clacking. Some people think they might just be smacking their hands against their mouths with their, their mouths pursed, whatever. I don't know. But I definitely think it's probably more of a tree wood knocking where they're picking up a down branch or whatever and just slamming it up against a tree. At least that's what it sounded like in BC. And I actually, after that occasion on one of the first nights, like I told you earlier, I walked up that hillside and I looked, and I did see a big tree that had what looked like a smack on it, and I did see some impressions, around that tree. When I come across manipulations and things like that of the, either the X's or the arches, things of that nature, teepees, I try to do like a circular approach. So I'm coming around at it in a circular manner so that I can look for track impressions and see if I can, correlate that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, my girlfriend and I took a ride up to New Jersey today, as a matter of fact. Our governor closed our parks, so all the parks have like cones in front of them and barrels.
Yeah.
But, so we drove up to Allaire State Park.
Okay, yep.
And I know my way around, so I went around the park, and we found a little, spot off the side of the road where we can pull in, and it just so happens that there's an entrance to the park there. So we took a little hike in there, and a few years back, there was a reported encounter with I think a bicyclist who had seen a gorilla sitting on a downed tree. And like right after that report came in, I was there with Heather, and we went and checked it out, talked to the rangers, and we had investigated that particular experience. So we went back there today, as a matter of fact. It took a short hike, but it was nice to get out into the woods, especially with it being blocked off. We haven't been out at night in about a month due to the what do they call that, the curfew, and the parks being closed. But yeah, you definitely were interested, I think, in recent sightings, I believe.
Yeah, for sure.
A couple of years ago, we investigated a follow-up report of a couple who were out in the Pine Barrens, and they were out with their dog just taking some pictures, got back into their vehicle, and as they were pulling away, the woman who was driving looks in her rear view, and she sees what she can't explain, something leaping across the road behind her as they're pulling away. And she said it wasn't a deer, she didn't know what it was, but it definitely wasn't a deer, and it was really quick, and it had like a same like strawberry blondish colored hair. And so they drove down the road a little bit, then turned around, and when they came back to that area, they smelled some strong felling odor, and they also heard like a whoop, whoop, whoop kind of sound. So my friend Art and my girlfriend Heather and I, contacted the witnesses the next day after this report came in, and we were able to meet up with them and do some follow-up, investigating with them. So that was years ago. I think it was 2017. Last spring, we actually had a report come in from June of 2019 where this guy was traveling from Philadelphia to his beach home, and he was just checking out a parking area of Franklin Parker Preserve, which is near Chatsworth, New Jersey.
Okay.
And he thought what he saw on the side of to his left was a groundhog. And he kind of glanced to the left as he was, or looked to the right. And he says, wow, that's a big groundhog, So he continues down the road a little bit, and this is like going through his mind, like, what did I just see, So he actually pulled around, he stops, he turned and came back the direction. And about 70 yards away from where he saw it, there was this juvenile individual standing there right at the side of the road. And just before he got closer to it, it tore off and ran towards the swamp. He said this thing ran quicker than any 10 or 12-year-old on a baseball team would run. And he should know because he's a coach, But we actually met with him. His first name was Mike. And it was really good to follow up on that because you don't often hear a sighting with a juvenile. It's usually an adult. So we actually recreated his encounter. I got in his vehicle with him, and I had the GoPro running on the dash, and I was recording with my audio recorder. And really interesting story, I have to say. And he definitely was legitimate. It turned out it was about 4 feet tall, about 18 inches across at the chest, and he described it as Chewbacca. Not Chewbacca, the individual on that lost that. You know which one I'm talking about?
Land
of the Lost.
Land of the Lost. Yeah.
I forget the creature's name now,
was,
but
Chaka.
Chaka. That's him. Exactly. So that was his description of it.
Wow.
And he had no interest in Bigfoot. He has a podcast also with the paranormal, and he has no interest at that point with Bigfoot. So it's not like something that he would have been thinking about. So it was really cool for him to have the opportunity to speak to somebody who, has a knowledge about these things and be able to share what he experienced. It was a relief for him to talk to somebody.
Wow, that's crazy. And
yeah,
that was you said, right?
Yeah, that was just last June.
So that's, of course, that's out in the pines.
And after we finished our interview with him, we actually continued. We went to that area, and I had my drone, and we did some drone aerial footage. We did some knocks and some calls, and we did have some weird responses, which potentially could have been a vixen fox. It was a very high-pitched scream,
Okay.
But those are the things, like not everything that snaps a branch or makes a whoop or a not Sasquatch. You know what I mean? We don't think that way. But
right, yeah.
We definitely try to do thorough research and to eliminate all other variables before we come to the conclusion that it's a Bigfoot.
Gotcha. Yeah. We kind of do the same thing with paranormal stuff. Now, as the sighting, what area was that sighting where the woman saw the?
That was closer over to the Brendan Byrne State Park area.
Okay.
So Brendan Byrne is off of Route 72 and I think it's Manchester. I think that is called.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's closer to your neck of the woods.
Yeah, it is. I actually just took a walk out onto Mount Misery.
Oh, nice.
Just a few days ago, yeah, and took because there's some of those state roads that just go on and on and on for miles out there.
Sure.
So just went, past the mount, like that campsite on Mount Misery Road, and just went, several miles past that, and found just a little road that just shot off of the main road, and just pulled in there, and we found like this really cool, thick, like cedar swamp off the side of the road, and hung out by there. We found some bones that I took some pictures of. I hope it's animal, but it's the Pine Barrens. You never know.
You never know.
But I mean,
is going to dispose of
Tony Soprano's been out there. So,
yeah. But no, we've actually been in that area. In fact, we did Art and another research friend of mine, Kevin, and I did an overnighter at Mount Misery. The bog's a little further in from Mount Misery, actually. And, it was one of the first times we actually went out later. Normally we get out around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we'll stay till 1, 2:30, in that area. But this time we got out later, and we stayed until the sun came up the next day. And there's been reports from the Mount Misery bogs also, which were credible. I mean, this is a ex-military, marksman who was out there duck hunting, and he reported sighting a individual walking down one of the dams across the bog from him, And like the dam was washed out at one point. This thing just walked right through the water and it was up to his chest. Like it didn't even phase him, like it didn't slow him down. And here he is, with a rifle, but it looks too human, That's why a lot of hunters won't pull the trigger when they have one of these creatures in their sights, because they're not sure if they're killing somebody,
Yeah. I'm not sure what I would do if I saw. I've seen all kinds of paranormal activity, and, hauntings and all kinds of craziness like that, but I've never seen a Bigfoot out in the wild, and I honestly don't know what the heck I would do. And I'm always interested to listen to the reports from witnesses and also people that investigate, like yourself, because there always seems to be this kind of, like, when this thing is seen, especially at short range, there always seems to be this, or when the thing calls, there seems to be this physical reaction in the people that are witnessing it. Do you think there's any kind of, do you think there's like infrasound at work here? Or do you think the actual call itself like has like a almost stunning, physical effect on people? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, they are large creatures, and I do feel they have the potential to do infrasound. And I've spoken with other researchers and had people on my expedition have, said to me they thought they experienced it. I have to say that, there was an occasion where I thought I experienced it once, where I felt like sort of nauseous, and kind of dizzy at one point. But yeah, these things do happen really quickly. And so that's why often these, people say, how come there's no clear pictures, Well, it's because we're not wildlife photographers and we don't have all the gear like they do on National Geographic. Most people who are just hiking out in the woods who have experiences are maybe holding a cell phone at best or a camera, Yeah. And so, that's why there's really not, I think, this conclusive evidence with pictures or even trail cams. I've had trail cameras out over the years and really only have gotten a few pictures of what potentially could have been something. But even those can be blurry at times because they move quick, But yeah, I do feel they have the ability to maybe do infrasound like a lion or something with a big lung capacity. And so people who I've been out with have reported to me that they felt like they've experienced it. I can't say for sure, of course, because we don't have that kind of data top. But I was going to mention, you asked me earlier what, some of my more exciting experiences were. I totally forgot to mention my road crossing as we were coming back from one of my areas. I was with a female friend, and we had gone out in March of 2010 to an area called Bear Swamp Tower Hill. And on the way back, because we didn't have any activity, it started to drizzle and it was cold. On the way back, we actually had a road crossing.
Wow.
This thing tore out in front of my vehicle. And at the time, I was driving a sedan. And, we weren't talking Bigfoot. We were just talking about what was on the radio, And literally, this thing tore out in front of my car. I slammed on my brakes, and she slid forward with a bottle of water between her legs, and the water sprayed all over. And she went, "What the F was that?" And I went, "Deer?" She goes, "No, it wasn't." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. It wasn't a deer. It had legs that were thicker than my waist, and hunched over, running on two legs. It was 3 foot over the hood of my car, and." Wow. It had this strawberry blondish hair, and you could see the hair flowing in the wind, because it was running so fast. And as it was in front of the vehicle in my headlights, you could see it look at us as if to say, "Oh shoot," it knew it messed up, but it luckily didn't stop, and it kept running into the property across the street. I turned around my vehicle and I went back and I tried to listen to hear if I could hear anything crashing through the woods or see any, impressions on the side of the road, but I didn't. The direction it was running, it came out of a trail that has chain link fence on both sides. So it was coming out of literally, we were back in civilization at this point.
Holy cow.
And it ran across the road, literally less than a quarter of a mile from where I went to high school. And through the next property across the street, it would have taken it in the trajectory it was running to the high tension pole lines. And these pole lines are like highways for animals to use, especially at night, for easy mobility,
Yeah, yep.
And like this particular set of high tension pole lines will take it all the way down towards, Atco, New Jersey, and into the Wharton of state forest. So it's really, it was a great experience. Of course, I didn't have a dash cam on my car at that time.
Oh,
Now, of course, I don't leave home without one,
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God.
And it's funny because one of my customers, I don't know if I mentioned, I own a health food store, and one of my customers the next day told me about an encounter not the next day, but he told me his future daughter-in-law at the time, now his daughter, actually had a exact same experience the following night that I had at the same spot. And then the same exact spot. And then a year later, a woman going in the opposite direction had the exact same experience. So it was really interesting to have, collaborating evidence. But, people have said to me jokingly, hey, why don't you guys just sit there, or put up a trail cam there?
Yeah, I wonder what it was. I mean, maybe it was going like scabbing, maybe.
I do think they're opportunists, so it was probably just looking for food people leave out either for wildlife or for even their own pets, or dumpster diving. But definitely, I think they're opportunists. So, yeah, it definitely was moving quick, though. So I don't know if something, spooked it at the development, and it was just tearing down this trail, like I said. Now it's funny, when you go past this trail, there's actually a tree blocking the trail. Like somebody looks like they may have positioned this
Wow.
I don't think it was the biggies that did it. I think it was maybe one of the homeowners that say, hey, I want to try to prevent these things from coming through here,
Yeah, I have a lot of people talk to me about, I'm not the Bigfoot guy, but in our normal community and end up crossing paths with a lot of people that do it, or I get questions sometimes asked. And one thing people say to me quite often is well, how come, seeing these things, and, how come you're not getting clear pictures of them and all that kind of stuff like that. And there's one, and this is one of the reasons why I was so interested to talk to you, because I wasn't aware that there were even sightings around this area. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking that, like, okay, if these things are hanging in South Jersey, it's got to be in the pines, obviously. And now there are vast tracts of the pines that are pretty, it's forest, but pretty open. And I mean, you can see a little into the forest. But then when I took that trip just a few days ago out to Mount Misery, I couldn't believe how thick it was in there. And especially that cedar swamp was, you couldn't even...
Oh, yeah.
I'm
White
looking
cedar.
At that terrain, and I couldn't get there if I wanted to. It was so thick and so much brush and so wet and deep muck and stuff. And I'd be hard-pressed to get through there if I had to save my life.
Absolutely. And, in response to those types of questions, I always say that, as far as no clear pictures, or why don't we find any bones or other evidence like scat. I have found some scat, but I never got it analyzed. I've had, hair analyzed, and like is not known, of unknown origin. But as far as pictures go, like I said, I answered that earlier with people just out in the woods traipsing around. They're typically not wildlife photographers, so they don't often have the equipment they need. Plus, keep in mind, buddy who doesn't do this kind of research, and you experience a sighting like that, chances are you're going to be slightly unnerved, and you're going to be like shaking. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's a normal response, the adrenaline, the fight and flight syndrome. But, as far as like you just mentioned, the woods, there's 1.7 million acres in the Pine Barrens, and most people don't go very far off trail. Yeah. So like you were saying, you drove in, you might have parked somewhere. When we typically do like to set up a base camp, and we'll just set up a couple of, camp chairs and get our gear out and get ready and kind of sit quietly at first, just to try to get accustomed and acquainted with the sounds that are immediately around us. Right. And then typically we'll take a hike for an hour or two, maybe around 11:30 at night, and we leave recording devices back at base camp so we can hear if something comes in while we're gone. Plus, we might set up little thermal cameras around, recording video recording devices around also. I usually try to leave little gifts out, food gifts and things like that. But there's so many areas that these individuals could call home, and we would never be even close to getting near there, you know? I mean, I've gone off trail many times and bushwhacked, but I have to say, in New Jersey, with all the chiggers and ticks, it's really, you gotta, you know, you gotta treat yourself with chemicals to keep those, you know, pests off of you, because they're nasty.
Oh yeah, which is probably like a signpost for if these creatures have any kind of sense of smell, they could probably pick that up away.
True. I would think they probably have a better sense of smell, maybe a better sense of hearing. I would definitely think they have better night vision than we have. Yeah. But there are reports that I've had, and I have followed up with witnesses that have reported being out, let's say, late at night in the parks. Maybe they were camping out at one of the local campgrounds, and they were going out early morning hours to set up some traps or whatever, and they've been paralleled, you know, by something. And, you know, they would shine their flashlight at direction where they hear a noise and they don't see anything, you know. And then when they lower their flashlight and they start to move again, the thing moves with them, you know. And then subsequently they have some big branch thrown at them, you know. It has happened. My friend Art had an experience back in the 80s, back, you know, Hidden Lakes, where he was, you know, hiking down this trail solo to go meet up with one of his friends that had walked down there. She was pissed off at the group, and she went to get away from everybody. And so he was the one who had the privilege to go and, you know, retrieve her. And as he's, you know, walking down this road at night, something's paralleling him. And when he gets to where she is, she's like, "There's something walking around me."
Wow.
And so as they're both walking where the rest of their friends were, they actually got paralleled and then screamed at like really loud. And that was one experience he shared with me where he felt that in his chest. You know, the sound was so like strong that he actually felt it vibrating in his chest.
Yeah.
You know? But again, didn't see it. As far as I remember him telling me, I don't think he saw anything, maybe a shadow, you know, because it was dark. And I think they have the ability to set at night than we do. I don't know if their sense of smell is much greater than ours, but I do treat my clothes prior to an expedition. I'll treat my clothes and my boots with permethrin, which actually the chiggers and chicks, the chiggers and ticks,
yeah.
You know.
Nice.
I don't take any chances with them because I was in Missouri once with another research buddy of mine. And we went to go explore an area where he had 3 Sasquatches come up on him. And one was an alpha male about 9.5 feet tall, all black. The other 2 were more juvenile, around 7 feet tall and auburn colored. And he was like paralleled on his way out. And he actually called me on the phone. He said, "Hey, if I don't make it out of here, tell my wife where I was," you know, kind of thing.
Oh my God.
Or I said, "Just relax. Don't smile at him." I said, "Just, you know, just back out slowly," you know, and I got him out. He was walking towards the road where his Jeep was. And as he got near the road, the vehicle coming down the road, and this thing went on all fours, like it went down on its belly, you know what I mean, and just laid flat. And that's when he turned and booked to his Jeep and tore out of there. But so when I went out to Missouri and visited with him, he took me there, and we had some really great evidence and some possible, you know, impressions. We found a nest too, which was really cool. And this thing was huge. It had like a bedding layer inside. There was an 18-inch track impression outside of it. Whoa. So good evidence that, you know, made me believe it wasn't man-made. You know what I mean? But when I got back to his place afterwards, I had like thousands of ticks on my waistband and you know, in areas where you don't want them, you know.
Oh, jeez.
And it freaked me out. And so after that, I'm not messing around anymore.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I've seen, you know, like footage on TV and stuff like that of people coming across these nests. Did that thing have a smell to it? Did it? I mean, and how much experience have you had with? I know, like, you know, there's there's the skunk ape tails from the Panhandle and stuff, but
right.
You know, have you experienced any kind of that?
I have.
You have. I
have a couple of times, actually, in New Jersey, a couple of occasions, and also out in British Columbia. But in British Columbia, we're at base camp, and like I had said, we were hearing some branch snaps and things around us. We were just kind of hanging out at the base camp in a circle. And I walked over to the edge where there was a berm behind a little trail going down to where that RV was located. And I smelled this smell, and it smelled like human biosolids. And I know what they smell like because I actually stepped in some when I was out in BC. They apparently use it for fertilizer. And I thought it was asphalt, right? So I stepped out this like berm or dam, whatever you want to call it. My boots sunk down to my ankle in human biosolids. And it was like one of the first nights we were out there. They almost didn't let me get back in the Jeep, to get back to base camp. And this individual just like that. And I actually called one of my fellow researchers over and I said, "Hey, do you smell that?" He goes, "Yeah." And I was with another friend in New Jersey out in Chatsworth one night, and we set up base camp, and then we were, walking a ways off to go set up a couple of trail cameras. And as we're getting ready to turn on this different trail, we both smelled this musky, kind of like wet dog, garbage type smell. And I said, "You smell that?" "Yeah." And so we went and we set up the cameras. And as we came back and we were getting ready to turn back towards base camp, the smell was gone. And when we got back to base camp, the smell was there.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that was really... And it dissipated after a little while. We actually had set up base camp that night right under a tree stand, from a hunter. And the funniest thing is, though, when I went back to retrieve my cameras a couple of weeks later, they were gone.
What?
Yeah, two trail cameras just gone. But I was smart and I put my business card in there with, "Please don't remove conducting wildlife research," So
Yeah.
with my phone number, apparently the hunter who found them turned them into the New Jersey Conservation. And so one of the foundation people called me up and I was able to meet up with him and retrieve my cameras.
Oh, thank God. Those aren't cheap.
Nah, these weren't, but this was many years ago, so they're actually obsolete at this point because they use the flash type, nighttime capturing. So now we're using no glow, type equipment, which I don't think frightens the potential, encounter.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I've lost a couple of those. I set them up in another area, Brendan Byrne, and I think a hunter who I may have captured on the previous photographs, images. First they took one, and then I was smart enough to go put another one out, and a week later they took that one. I thought there was some kind of decorum as far as not taking other people's, trail cameras, but apparently not so. So now we're real careful about where we do place them, and I was going to use Reconics for Christmas, and my girlfriend was like, I really don't want to get you one of those. I'm afraid you're going to lose it, and they're not cheap. But I did wind up getting a decent one at Bass Pro Shops last month when we were over there in AC. I picked up a new no-glow, trail camera that we're put soon. Just a matter of getting out into the forest again. So we're looking forward to the governor, releasing his restrictions on that. Because my friend Art contacted me yesterday. Says he has a ham hock left over from Easter. So we'll leave a little for him. We've hung, turkeys in trees. We've hung fish in trees and ham hocks and things out at the Vortex. We call it the Vortex because that's the one place I've gotten lost in the Pine Barrens.
Wow.
And I was out there with Heather on my birthday on New Year's Day, and she and I went to retrieve a camera. And we weren't planning on being out there, but turns out that once we got in, I couldn't find my way back out. And we weren't prepared, to stay out there for any length of time. And so we weren't dressed appropriately. I had my knapsack with some stuff, but really not enough, gear or equipment. So I wound up calling Art and have him drive all the way out there to honk his horn so we could, locate which direction to walk out.
Wow.
And, of course, Heather's freezing and crying at this point. This is like one of our first dates.
Oh, no.
And so now we're engaged, though, so it's cool.
Oh, nice.
Hey, well, thanks. She's one of these women that don't mind going out and screaming and howling at the moon, and she likes to do those outdoor expeditions with me, so she's definitely a keeper. But then it was funny because we got her into Art's truck and we got her, warming up, and then he and I walked back in to go retrieve the camera. And he and I got lost.
What?
I can't even describe it. It's like you get turned around in the Atlantic white cedar swamp, right? That's what this location is. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, it's easy to get turned around out there. And so basically at that point we're trying to contact Heather by cell phone to like have her honk the horn and the cell reception where we are.
Oh no, that's right.
So that's why we affectionately dubbed this place called the Vortex, you know. And and it's funny because recently it was me, Art, and another guy from Delaware. We went out there and we did a night investigation not long ago, and I had a ham hock set up out there with the cameras. I had two trail cams set up at different angles, and so we went back in and did a night investigation. And at one point, I went in to go retrieve and so all three of us go into the vortex. But I said, okay, you guys wait here, because this is like the end of any visible trail. So I went in by myself. And it's just a precaution, because of the previous experiences. Like I got the cameras, and then I was able to head back out, with them letting me know where they were, and it's easy to get lost when it's dark and there's no moon, and even with a red LED headlamp, it's still see. But the pines are spooky.
They're spooky, but there's it's so easy to get lost out there. For some reason, it just unless you have just spent hours and hours tooling around back there. You can get lost so easy, and I can't really put my finger on exactly why.
Yeah, well, it's I don't know. It's the denseness, like you mentioned earlier. In the summer months, especially, it's really dense. In the fall and in the winter, a lot less dense. And it's funny. I was out. I'll just share one more experience of mine with you, and then I know there's another topic I think you had in mind. But as far as future stuff going on, but I was out there on Thanksgiving morning. And early on in my research, I used to go out and do this because you had to ask what got me into it. Well, I was going through a divorce at the time. I was separated. And on holidays, I wouldn't be with my children. I have a son and a daughter. And so in order to keep myself from being up in my head, I'd go take hikes out in the woods and do research. So it was Thanksgiving, 2010. And I went out to a deserted railroad track area in the Pine Barrens near Apple Pie Hill.
Okay. And
so I had hiked about 2 miles away from my car at that point, and crossed over the railroad tracks. I did 3 wood knocks, and right after I did the third knock, from my right came a growl so loud it vibrated my right ear, and I turned and I went, "Whoa!" And it went, "Whoa!" again, and I went, "Whoa!" a second time, and I'm looking and I can't see where this growl is coming from.
Wow.
And it's like it's winter. It's November, 26th or the day it was, and I can't see where the growl's coming from. So at that point, I'm standing. I have a child's baseball bat that I used at the time for wood knocking, and I'm like 2.5 miles away from my car at this point. I said, "Hello, how are you? Does this mean you don't want me here?" I'm like, okay, I'll leave, and I actually turned. I walk back up to the railroad tracks. I turn and I by. I go back down the other side of the tracks back onto the trail I came in on, and, I'm starting to head back towards my car. And so I periodically would glance over my shoulder to see if I'm getting followed. And as I'm on the main trail, which would take me to my car, I see to my right a game trip going off through a grove of mountain laurel. And I know they love mountain laurel because it's great for concealment. In fact, we saw tons of it today in Hilaire, and I mentioned it to Heather. But I see this game trail. I said, "Oh, that looks interesting," right? So I make a run through the game trail, and I wind up coming out to this clearing. And I didn't mention it had snowed overnight. There was a light snowfall on the ground. In this clearing, there's a set of tracks about 11 inches, maybe 12 inches in length, and it was like, they were snowed over, so it wasn't like fresh, but they were made obviously overnight, and they were tightrope fashion. Okay, not like a human side by side kind of steps, but tightrope. It wasn't a bunny hopping or another common animal that we typically see. This was footsteps. You could see toes and stuff. It just wasn't like fresh to the point where it was just there, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
At the end of this clearing was a arch, an X, and a tree snapped off. And I said, wow, this looks like a great place to put my trail camera. So that's what I did. I set up a trail camera. I had a can of Alpo dog beef stew and some apples, and I set up my trail like a half hour after I got growled at 5 times. And I set it up, and then I hiked back out and went back out to my car and left. So that was another fun experience I thought I should bring up.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that's unnerving that you hear a growl like that and you can't place it. Like, it'd be one thing if you saw a bear, you go, oh, okay, whoa. Like, at least you know what you're dealing with.
Right.
But the fact that you don't see anything is to me seeing a bear.
And you know what? I'm gonna just interject there because, you know, at that time people might be saying, well, yeah, that's because they're intradimensional, or they have the ability to cloak themselves. You know what I mean? And I don't put anybody's opinions down. I don't happen to be a flesh and blood believer. I believe they're creatures like us. You know, they're flesh and blood. But there are amongst researchers people who may believe that they have the ability to cloak or to be intradimensional. You know, some people feel there's a UFO. One of my customers is actually George Filer. He's one of the directors of MUFON. And so he often tells me about stories of, you know, reports that he gets into his website with people who claim that, you know, in addition to seeing a UFO, they saw a Bigfoot. You know what I mean? And I said, well, George, that's probably just because they're curious creatures. And if I were to be out in the woods and I saw a UFO, and I would be, you know, coming up and looking up in the sky at it. You know what I mean? I don't believe they came down from outer space, you know. I also don't believe that they have the ability to cloak, but I can't say for sure. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And I'm open to that discussion, but my opinion is that they're flesh and blood. But, you know, that might explain why anything growling at me. I don't know.
Yeah, but, I've heard people too say, you know,
sure,
espouse the theory that that the reason that you smell, you know, like a sulfur kind of a smell is that it's the paranormal facet of it, and it's some people say that, oh, well, it's, you know, obviously demonic because that's why you smell sulfur when you see it. But I mean, I personally know, just having been in the military and been out in the woods and camped and hiked, you know, for, you know, tons and tons of times, I know that I have walked right past a deer before and didn't see it,
right?
You know, until it moved.
I have to.
You know, there's tons of times where, you know, if you're walking through the woods, there could be a deer 20 feet away from you, as long as it just stays still.
It's true. We were actually, like I said, we were on our way back to the car this afternoon, and Heather thought she saw a chipmunk, and then she wasn't sure if it was maybe a small baby groundhog. Okay, and so she stopped to investigate that. And as I'm like looking into this ravine, I saw what looks like a white-tailed deer. Okay, running up the side of that hillside at the ravine, and I was, oh, there's a deer, you know. And it was weird because, you know, you'll see a deer tear off and then it's gone and it blends in and you don't see it. Then I'm continuing to look, and I thought I saw something else like standing there or like kind of weaving back and forth, you know. And I was like, whoa, what's that? And I crouched down to try to get a better look, but, you know, obviously it was about 80 yards away, and I couldn't really see it clearly. But you just never know. They, like I said, Bigfoot especially, you know, have the ability to really conceal themselves well. And most reports, most witnesses will say that, you know, encountered it turned, it looked at them, and then it just turned around and walked into the woods, and it was gone, you know?
Yeah. And
that quick.
And most of the reports, and I'm sure you've noticed this, the only time really people are sure about what they saw is when the thing is like darting across the road, across in front of your car, or something like that. And just knowing what they look like, allegedly, even just the, you know, the big hair and that coloring. If that thing is standing anywhere in the woods, like, and I'm sorry, unless it moves, you're not going to see it. You're just not. And
I've proven that myself, doing my own research into that theory, by being a solo hiker. I was in Pennsylvania, Northeast PA, around the AT one day, and I went into this laurel grove, right? And I wound up finding like miniature manipulations tucked into the base of the bush, which was right by an underground spring coming to the surface. So it looked like maybe the young ones were maybe mimicking their parents, right? And so I heard some hikers coming up the trail, and so I motionless, right? And I said, let me just, you know, crouch here and see if they see me. Sure enough, 4 people hiking up the trail just walked right past me without even noticing. And of course, after they got a little further down the trail, I had to do a whoop just to kind of, you know, scare them a little.
Yeah, and you're not even covered with hair, so.
and I wasn't even covered in hair, you know. But I have a little bit of fun too, you know. I mean, I do take it very seriously, but when I'm out by myself, sometimes see some individuals out there, like today, as a matter of fact. It's funny, we thought we were the only ones in the park, right, because they're closed. Yeah. So I picked up a stick and I did a couple of wood knocks, and then we're listening. All of a sudden, this guy comes running down the trail, dark hair, dark clothes, and he's heading straight for us, you know. And Heather was like, "Oh my God!" Like, you know, we weren't expecting that. So then he runs by, he says hello, runs by, right, and on the way back out, I did a couple of, and sure, she says. Whoa, what was that? And I think I hear people. And sure enough, this little kid on a bicycle and his dad and I guess his grandfather, three individuals on bikes are coming up the trail at us. And the little kid's like, "Oh, is this the trail that takes you to the airstrip?" I said, "Yes, it is." And the dad's like, "Well, don't worry, we're not going to say anything, you know, because we're out there too, you know." But it's so weird. Like, first I do a knock and this one guy runs by. Then I do a whoop and these three individuals ride past us. And I was like, well, that's crazy, you know?
Oh, that's cool.
But again, I wasn't trying to scare anybody. I thought we were out there by ourselves, you know?
Yeah,
I was just trying to elicit a response from a provocation. That's what we try to do when we're out there. And so, you know, Heather's done a couple of knocks. We actually went to an area, we call it the Ghost Forest. And she did a couple of knocks just to try it out before the producer showed up that evening, and got an immediate response. And Art actually had his digital recorder going, so we actually recorded it, which was cool. Just never know, you know. It's a matter of being in the right place at the right time. That's really what it comes down to. And so,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's the same thing with paranormal too. So you could spend 17 hours straight in the dark, just staring at the wall, and nothing happens.
Exactly.
You know, and as soon as you turn your recorder off, all hell breaks loose.
Oh yeah, and then it'll fail too. You know, the batteries will die, or you get static. I mean, it's just crazy, all the different things that can happen on these things. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we've had experiences. We've recorded, you know, a lot of vocalizations which were similar to other areas. Like I said, the one in North Jersey sounds a lot like the one we recorded down in the Pine Barrens. Again, you mentioned how quickly these encounters happen. The individual ran out in front of me, right? And I'm actually out there that night doing this research. And what do I say when she says, "What is that?" I said, "Deer," because that's the first thing your mind wraps around, right. You know? Oh, and we would be remiss. I know it's running into, I don't know how long you do this for, but we'd be remiss without mentioning the jewel, of course, right?
Yeah, I meant to touch on that. Thank you for bringing that up.
I just thought of it. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, I believe that's folklore. I don't put down anybody who's out there doing research into the Jersey Devil or who potentially has that they believe is the Jersey Devil. I'm looking at a sticker I have on my PC monitor right here, you know, that I got probably out at Smithville or something, right? Yep. But, you know, I believe that that's folklore that's been perpetuated in this area because people have these encounters out in the, you know, 6 to 8 foot creatures with red glowing eyes that are screaming at them in the darkness, you know? Yeah. And it's because of these encounters that the folklore has kept going all these years. So that's my personal opinion. The woman who I was with actually that night, heading home from the Pine Barrens where we had the road crossing, she's actually a Jersey Devil researcher, you know? Oh, and so she'd be out there looking for the JD while I'm out there looking for Bigfoot. And originally, he was like a production kind of guy. He wanted to do a documentary, an animal documentary, but he thought he would do it on Jersey Devil. And he got his start in the Bigfoot thing by researching Jersey Devil. He started to come to realize that, hey, maybe a misidentification of people having experiences with a potential Bigfoot, you know?
Right.
So I just wanted to touch upon that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's been a thought in my head too, and even talking about, you know, not to get too deep in the weeds, but reports of like Mothman and stuff like that. And well, some of those reports sounds exactly like some of the reports that people claim were the Jersey Devil. So I mean, okay, so maybe there is some kind of a paranormal thing out there that's flying around that's again misidentified. The people have in their head, oh, I'm in the Pine Barrens, so if I see something weird, it's going to be the Jersey Devil.
Exactly.
And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on, because so not many people really associate Bigfoot with New Jersey.
True.
Even though the sightings are happening here, and it's not one of the more regions like, you know, like the Pacific Northwest, or the Himalayas or wherever, all these places that are renowned for having these sightings. This isn't typically an area where it's known for that necessarily, but I mean, my mother, she lived in New Egypt, and this is back in the, I'm thinking probably like the 1950s. Swore up and down that the Bigfoot ran right through the yard, and again, no one had a camera or anything, so they just kind of took her word for it. But to her deathbed, she swore up and down that this thing ran right through her yard. I
don't doubt that. New Egypt is definitely one of my areas. Bass River State Park is there, and there have been by state troopers in that area, and there's a number of reports that have come into our website from that area as well. And, as many reports that are published on the BFRO website, you would not believe how many reports are in FLATS. We call it FLATS. That's an acronym for the field reporting database. And there are so many sightings and reports that have come in. Some are obviously, hoaxers or, people messing with us. But there's a number that are just as of yet, unpublished. And that's our responsibility as investigators to follow up with the witnesses and try to come to decide whether it is an actual sighting, or what class it is. Sometimes it's not possible with witnesses. They may have moved or they don't want to talk. I mean, it's just not always easy, is what I'm saying.
Right, yeah.
But I definitely believe your grandma,
Yeah, I did too. I mean, she was adamant about it. So what is? I mean, you mentioned an expedition coming up in the Pines, but I mean, other than that, like what kind of things are coming up for the BFRO? I mean, is there a new technology that's being rolled out? Is new techniques? Like what's on the horizon for you folks?
Well, in addition to the expedition, of course, that we have already scheduled, there are numerous other ones, of course, across the country, led by other organizers, and there is some new technology that's been implemented using drone aerial footage, actually, with thermal cameras mounted on them. So that's kind of exciting. And there's been some of that used in a recent show on Travel Channel. It was Bigfoot Expedition, I think it was called. And they actually had some type of gear that utilized that technology. So Matt Moneymaker is actually in the process of filming a new series, I believe, that may be picked up. Art, and we're talking about maybe finally getting our podcast going, and talking about some of our experiences and interviewing other potential witnesses and people who have had, investigators and such that have a number. So there's some things that we have on the horizon, being that I have a full-time business, of course, you know what I mean? So that's one thing. I do the Bigfoot thing more of a hobby. It's nice when you can turn a passion of yours into something you actually do, get some reimbursement for. So as an organ, I get reimbursed a little bit for my efforts, and that's cool because I invest that back into gear that we turn around and use in our research. So, that's really cool. But no, I love getting out there, and that's something I miss with this whole pandemic thing going on, that we actually can't go out into the woods and be healthy and breathe fresh living air. but liquor stores are open,
Right. Exactly.
And so that's an essential. But I know it's going to be coming to an end soon, I think, and we're going to get more normalcy, and hopefully this will, not affect our June expedition. I know that the Ohio one the Ohio expedition, I think, just got postponed till September. So that's kind of a bummer. Not that I was going on it, of course. I can't go to all of them. But, those are some things that are happening. And I definitely would encourage anybody who has an interest in this topic to try to get in on an expedition or get out there into the forest. If you get pretty, and just keep your eyes and ears open. I don't carry a weapon with me when I'm out in the field. We're a no-kill, organization. I bring a Kimber pepper spray with me just because I'm more fearful of the locals than I am the wildlife,
Yeah.
Although, what we call pineys, a lot of them have taken me under their wing, and they were actually quite pleased when I brought some attention to the Pine Barrens with our Jersey Sasquatch episode on Finding Bigfoot back in 2014. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's great to be outdoors, and like I said, being an ex-New Yorker, I never would have imagined myself being out there and camping and canoeing and kayaking and as much as I do now. But like I've instilled that love of the nature and the forest into my now adult children, you know, who are 20 and 20. My son just turned 23 yesterday. My daughter's 20, and they, you know, they're the, hey Dad, when are we going camping? You know. And over the years, I've used them as bait when they were little. Yes, I will admit that. And there's been times when I've recorded them playing, and then I've played it at our base camp at night, you know, to draw in the Bigfoot. But it's really cool that they have nature now. And my son just got a Toyota Tacoma, so he's out there. Hey, Dad, you know, this means we're going to have to go four-wheeling together, you know?
Nice.
So we're always out there enjoying the Pine Barrens. And I love to get up in northern New Jersey. The terrain is a lot different. And that goes back to what you mentioned earlier about the population. Like out in New Jersey, yes, people typically associate it with northern New Jersey and the fuel oil refineries and things of that nature, Sopranos. But even up in northwestern New Jersey, like you said, where you go out on the AT, it's such a beautiful area, and there's just so much like expanse of really open land. And in the Pine Barrens too, we just have so much and some things that are really unique to our area, you know, like certain carnivorous plants and certain wildlife too. It just really amazes me, you know, how much we have. And I'm only like 15, 20 minutes away from it where I'm at. So it's a blessing for me to be in this area and to have that, you know, right outside my door, basically.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I remember vividly the first time I went up to northwest New Jersey, up to the Appalachian off Route 80. And I was like blown away. I'm like, I can't believe, like, this is New Jersey? You got to be kidding me. It's like a different world. It's so gorgeous up there.
Oh, and that goes to the point I was trying to make, though, about population density, okay? Like, we have some, you know, I would say pods of Bigfoot, because there's probably 3 to 4 individuals in a pod, okay, or a family group, whatever you want to call it. Out in the Pacific Northwest, it's definitely a hot spot. And when we were out in BC, let me tell you, we had activity every night. It was never a dull moment, you know, from the knocks and the screams and the... it was just really, really awesome to be out there in Washington State, of course, Oregon, Northern California. I would have to say has a higher population than we do. Pennsylvania actually is really up there in the amount of sightings that come into our website, to the BFRO site. And so, PA is really a hot spot also. And an area where I've had, again, a few occasions, not only my first northwestern Allegheny forest, but also in Northeast PA, where I went up with another researcher I met at the original expedition in PA. We went up to investigate a white Sasquatch that was seen. I don't know if you've heard of the albino.
Yeah, I just heard a report about this not that long ago.
Okay, well, first was sighted years ago. He and I went up and we spent a night up there. We actually did camp out in a state game land, and we had a rock thrown at us. I got a couple of game camera footage that, you know, looks like I mean, it's kind of distorted, but it's kind of weird looking. Yeah. And we definitely had wood knocks and a couple of vocalizations. So, you know, this is just stuff. There's no conclusive evidence at this point. There's no bodies. Well, you know, when something dies, typically it dies on its own. It's not going to die right out there on the trail. You know, it goes off to hide and be by itself. Depending on the soil, like in New Jersey, the soil's real acidic. So a dead animal is going to be gone typically within a week or two. You know, others will take the bones and spread them out and chew them up. I mean, there's been a lot of documentation as to how that happens. I just came across, it was funny, I was out on a hike in, I guess, November, a solo hike, and across a deer carcass, which was right about 50 feet away from what I call a gifting tree. Somebody actually hung some things in the tree and left some shells and a red ball on the ground, you know. Okay. And I hiked over to this marshy area, and I found a dead deer. And it was like just imposed, like the jaw was torn, and there was like some flesh missing from its hind quarter. But a couple of weeks later, I went back out with another research friend of mine, and this thing was almost totally gone, you know? I mean, wow. So I don't really feel like I've been out, like I said, on so many hikes out in the woods, and I've come across maybe a few deer carcasses, but I've never come across a wolverine or a bear or a cougar. You know what I mean? So predatory animals, typically, you're not going to find. And
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and Bigfoot's an apex predator. You know.
Yeah, I mean it's rare that you find any carcass in the woods. Period.
Absolutely.
You know.
I found a beaver jaw once, and that was kind of cool. And,
oh, nice.
I found some deer skulls and like I said, the what do they call the ungulates, you know?
Right.
But that's about it as far as what's coming up on the horizon. Like I said, we're always looking to people, though, who are interested in this type of research, and we try to, that's what our Facebook page, our NASBRO group's about. We tried to put together a group where people in the area can kind of keep in touch, and that way we don't, like, cross each other's, areas or maybe, mess with one another if we're out there doing some research. Kind of keeps things, straight.
Right, gotcha, yeah, to keep tabs on everybody. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's cool. Yeah, so I want to thank you for coming on. It was super interesting. Hopefully that, our listeners are more enlightened about, New Jersey and what's actually out there. Besides just being super creepy, the Pine's got some stuff going on out there.
Absolutely.
And I will also post links to the website and everything like that on the episode page as well, so that people can find the information and stuff like that. Now, is there any evidence on the website that people can check out as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we have some things on there. And again, on our North American Sasquatch Bigfoot Researchers Organization, which is what the NASBRO acronym stands for, we have posts, of course, from all our night outs. You know what I mean? Art does a good job making all our investigations and what happens when we're out there. So that's a great way to keep tabs on what we're doing. But yeah, there is evidence on our website, nasbro.net, and also on the BFRO.net websites. Definitely.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll make sure I post the links to all those sites on there. And again, really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. I look forward to perhaps going on one of these expeditions at some point in the future.
Absolutely. Hey, I appreciate you reaching out to us and giving us the opportunity to share our experiences with you and your listeners. So thank you.
I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode in the bunker. If you enjoy this podcast, there are a few things that you can do to help support the show. If you're on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, you can leave us a 5-star rating and review, and this will help others to find the bunker and the safety that it provides. And the podcast is free to listen, but it isn't free to create. So I urge you that if you enjoy the podcast, go to our homepage and click that support tab and just help support the show. This will allow us to provide much more content moving forward. You can also just share our page on social media. The Bunker is located on Twitter at InTheBunkerCast. Again, that is InTheBunkerCast on Twitter. Also, you can send us a direct email at mailtothebunker@gmail.com. That's mailtothebunker@gmail.com. If you're experiencing some strange activity or just want to tell your story, feel free to shoot us a message either on Twitter or at Gmail. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time in the bunker.